Okay, this is Larry Stein, Stein on Stuttering, and we're here today with Sarah Nikirk, we've been talking for must be a couple of years now, maybe 2, 3 years or so. And Sarah is a very high level person in a very large, well-known organization and has leadership role. And she has a lot of high pressure speaking things that she does. And when we first met, honestly, I'm not sure I even thought you stuttered, but you told me that in these very, high-end, high-pressure situations, that you had a lot of trepidation, a lot of anxiety. Why don't you go into that a little, Sarah?
Yeah, so when I first met you, Larry, I was, still in that discovery mode, if you will, trying to figure out, all the things as it relates to stuttering. And I think we as people who stutter have, or at least in the past, had a lot of trepidation about upcoming speaking events and spent a lot of time in our heads, if we will, worried about, you know, whether or not we'd be called on us in a certain sequence, or if we had to give data points at a certain time and would be called on, or if there were certain ways in which we needed to deliver information. I think those are all times that were scary for people, like myself, who, for the most part, on the day-to-day speaking with family or friends might have some trying times, but for the most part, maybe didn't have a really difficult point later on in my life. Obviously, I've been a person who stutters my whole life. So that experience has sort of washed and waned too. I can remember being in school and having great fears about being called on to read and all the things that people, have thought and felt. But as a professional, when I first met you, I had already been to Toastmasters, I'd been to speech therapy. I'd done a lot of work internally, trying to figure out, what it is that, makes me so crazy, if you will, in my head about the worry and the fear. And I think that, the work that you and I did and the conversations that we had was that I had done all this work, but what I hadn't done I had not applied it to the very basics of the everyday speaking. For instance, I still had a lot of feared words. There were certain words that, would worry me. And, in my role, those are some of the words that I have to say on a daily basis. And so, when I met you, you quickly said, Sarah, here's how I approach words. They're just words. I don't give more credence to one word over the other. And the way that I attack those words is through breath, emphasis, small phrases, and those things. And so, of course, that was all good information. And I thought, oh, wow, I've got this now. I'll just breathe more. I'll just emphasize more. I'll just do all the things that Larry told me to do. Well, I didn't do them every day in those non-scary places. And then when I got called on in the bigger places, well, I was paralyzed with fear and all of those things. But, you kept saying, so where are you practicing? What is the work you're doing, on the everyday level, if you will? And so I really took, your word to heart and started practicing all of those things in just the everyday speaking with my husband, with my daughter, with my friends, with my workout partners, wherever I was, I tried to emphasize certain words and play with phrases and breathe more and do all the things. So in those everyday settings, that way of speaking became normal and comfortable. So then when the big scary things happened and I wanted to call on those things, if you will, I was practiced enough that I could pull on those things that, we talk about that make you a better speaker all the time. And so, what I would say is that it is so very important to do the work on a daily basis, not to wait until it's scary, and of course, put yourself out there. I think a lot of people who stutter, just think they can't do it. They're not going to be able to do it. And of course, if you don't do it, you're not going to be able to do it, right? And so the more you put yourself out there and the more you don't beat yourself up when you do fail, because you will fail some of the time. All people, we're not perfect. We're going to, have better days than others. That's just the way life is. But just saying, okay, I tried today, wasn't perfect, but you know what? I'm going to try again tomorrow. And I'm going to try again tomorrow. And then you start building on successes. You start going, wow, somebody complimented me on the way I did that. Or, that really went better. It was kind of fun. And so anyway, that's really what I did.
Yeah, and once you get that little success, once you can feel that you're all of a sudden making progress, and it feels real. In my case, I always thought, with one good conversation day that, oh, I was done. No, but you really built on it. And whereas I always said, try and go small steps, you are operating at a very high level in what you do. And so that made it even harder. But you had done a lot of the work on your own. But I thought it was really important, just what you said, that, there are feared words, there are feared sounds, but they're just widgets. And they're just, we have built them up on our own. We could take them down on our own. And that's, I think, a lot of that you did. And so now when you're faced with those kind of high-end speaking engagements that you do have, I think you're handling them so much better now, right?
Yeah, I think the one thing that I took away from these kinds of things is that I had to really start enjoying them. You know what I mean? Like, not taking them for granted. Not everybody has the opportunity to do this. Not everybody has the opportunity to speak. And so if you get it, instead of dreading it, embrace it and, think, oh my goodness, here's my chance. I get a chance to do this and I'm going to enjoy it. And if I walk away from it and, it's not perfect, you know what, at least I can walk away knowing that I tried. And I think the more that you try to enjoy it and the more you put the focus on other people, the more you do enjoy it. So rather than walking into a room and going, oh my goodness, they're all looking at me, I'm looking at them. I'm saying, hey, how are you? What's your name? Getting to know folks, it's not about me now. It's about them and the information that I can share. And that not only puts me at ease, but it also puts my listener at ease.
Right. And that's so important, to take the focus off of this and onto them, to give and enjoy in every conversation. And I think what you have done is really embrace that concept. And I think that's really brought you. So in terms of the things we did, from what I've heard so far, is you have built on successes, and that's a really powerful thing, because once you build on successes, it almost becomes like a habit, doesn't it? It's like you almost begin to expect successes, which is a nice change. You also looked very realistically at some of these words and these sounds that are so difficult for me, they're really just widgets. They're just another thing in that it's the breathing and the emphasis and the phrasing that if I could get the basics right, those things will quite often fall into line. And then the third thing you said, if I heard you right, was that was to give and enjoy every conversation, and that really changes the whole paradigm. All of a sudden, from how much did I stutter? That's the old paradigm, and the new paradigm is, did I really enjoy this? Did I give? Did I help the other person? I think that's fantastic, Sarah. Kudos to you, really.
Thank you, Larry. I think that if I was gonna, say I wanted to give a really important takeaway, the really important takeaways are, put yourself out there, but before you do, practice this in safe places. And practice it when you don't need to practice it. Practice it with the most comfortable person you know. And if that's somebody you know personally, great. If it's someone at the grocery store, wonderful. If it's somebody, that you meet on the street, it doesn't matter, but you have to practice it. You cannot wait until you're on the high dive to learn how to gracefully fall into the water. You have got to make this way of speaking your way of speaking, and you've got to kind of make it so comfortable that when those big situations come up, and they will, it's so comfortable at that point. It's like riding a bike. Yeah, you learned how to ride a bike, right, in a safe place. Your mother didn't put you on a 4-lane highway and say, go out, Larry, and learn how to ride a bike. She did that in a safe place where if you fell off, you might skin your knee, but you wouldn't, get ran over. And learning how to speak is very much like that, in that you have got to break it down, do it where you're comfortable, take these great lessons of, breathe, emphasize, enjoy, put yourself out there, but start small and then build on those successes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's been great talking to you, Sarah. We should do this again. Thanks so much. And I really hope a lot of people take your message to heart. So,
thank you, Larry.
Thank you. We'll talk soon.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.